pleasure for me as a longtime fan to be sitting here with Aaron Gray.
Here with Larry Hama.
We're talking with Kevin J. Anderson, best-selling author.
Mr. Neil Adams.
I am here with David Fritz.
Axel Alonso, editor.
Shadow Stevens. And Devil's Comic-Con with John Delancey.
With Tom King.
Kevin Conroy.
Free comic book day.
Denise Crosby.
PopCon Pop Expo.
Here on location at Star Wars Celebration.
Cafe Expo, talking for our second time with Gil Gerard.
Wichita, Kansas at Time Eddie.
Producer David Gerald.
I've got Eric Flint.
Are here at Smallville Comic-Con.
Wizard World St. Louis.
VillageCon in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Michael Lombardi.
We were talking with Alan Dean.
Quincy Allen.
Suzanne Landon.
Of Starlog Magazine, Mr. Kerry Oakwood.
Chris Sami.
Len Lee. Dave Schwartz. Mano Incarami. Jason Aaron.
This is Sci-Fi for Me, your portal to the science fiction multiverse.
The Immortal Mask, a 1970s superhero crime noir adventure that follows a retired soldier who is given a Covenant interview with a death row inmate. What he learns from the interview thrusts him into Atlanta's shadowy underworld. He'll have to utilize his military training to survive from being hunted for the information that could topple the most powerful ruling class in the city. This is not a pre-order or a crowdfunding campaign. Get your books now at Denali's.com.
25 seconds to curtain, folks.
I don't care if Monday's black, Tuesday, Wednesday, hard to tell, Thursday, never looking back, it's Friday, I'm in love.
And it's another edition of the LCS Guys. We've got Michael Tierney with us today. Michael, how are you, sir?
Doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm not doing too bad. It's a Friday. We took the previous show off, so it's been a month. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it has. Time just flies by.
It does. It really does.
I noticed that all your walls are still standing.
Yeah, I made it through the tornado. Okay, it passed fairly close to me, but it just missed my community, and it was one of those weird tornadoes where we're surrounded by, a thunderstorm and lightning striking, so I could hear it going by, and of course all the sirens are going off all over the place. But it stayed a few miles to the east of me.
Okay, so yeah, I would almost expect it to do that. Because that's what tornadoes do in that area. They follow 30 all the way up, and they just stay on the interstate. Like they don't want to take the side roads.
You know what's crazy about tornadoes? Usually they kind of wander around. You don't know where they're going to go next. This thing was just a straight line coming from the south and headed northeast. It was weird.
All right, we got Corey Ransom Art in the chat popped in. Glad to have you here, sir. Hope that we can entertain you while you're here. Appreciate you popping in. So did it go towards Conway, or did it go towards more Cabot direction, I guess?
More towards Cabot, right. Okay. Yeah, it kind of came from the Mablevale up through like West Little Rock, and then it cut through North Little Rock. And of course, I'm aware of a lot of things because I'm on the city council. I was talking to the fire chief afterwards, and if you watch all the newscasts, usually you saw the Maumelle fire truck, because we were sending our fire trucks to help all the different places. There was a fire that broke out in Little Rock. We had a spare truck that we'd on the council had approved to do repairs on, to keep it as a spare. And so they had that as an emergency truck to deploy to a fire that Little Rock wouldn't be able to handle otherwise. And then we had our police. They were out there as far away as Jacksonville. So you're seeing the Maumelle police car on the news for Jacksonville, and overnight they provided assistance to prevent looting in North Little Rock like that. The Little Rock Fire Department got really lucky. They had all their highest qualified guys just finish a drill, and bam, that's when the tornado hit. So all the guys were already together in a place and ready to deploy. So that was fortuitous.
We learned just in time. Is the old shop still standing? I mean, it went through West Little Rock, so.
I think so. I don't think it got right over there. It didn't get too far from it. But matter of fact, one person I do know that got hit pretty bad, not directly, but his mother, the publisher of Kursova magazine, Kursova Publications, his mother's house was flattened. And,
oh my God.
He's okay. She's okay. But they pretty much just wiped the house out.
Yeah, but that's everything in the house too. That's years of memories, not to mention the monetary value of things that you had in your house.
Yeah, I kept because I kept hearing about all these different aids. I was like, hey, this is a place that's got boxes. This is a place that's got tires. Finally sent me an email. Okay, we got it covered. We're okay now. Everything's
okay.
Yeah. So okay, I'm thanking you.
He wasn't printing there, so.
Right. Yeah. But
so that's So that's the weather covered. We've talked about the weather like a couple of
2 years ago.
Yeah,
I have been hit by a tornado in my house here.
Oh,
yeah. This is about 20 years ago. I'm working my West Little Rock store. Towards the end of the day, fortunately, I didn't have anybody in there. All of a sudden, I get a call from the alarm company going, "Hey, the alarm is going off at your house, but the police say they're too busy to check on." I'm like, "Okay, well, bam!" I locked up and I hit the road. And fortunately, I was driving my 4-wheel drive truck. So, and there were trees down the road, so I was able to get around all the obstacles, got to my house. And you know what a double tree is, where it kind of splits and goes into two trees at once. Had a double tree knocked off the park, green space surrounding my house, and into my house right over my library room. I walk in, and that whole ceiling is caved in like a big bubble because all the rain was on that ceiling. I'm moving stuff out as fast as I can. And I didn't, move any of the shelves or anything like that. I thought, well, those stuff will be okay. It ended up being all right. But, so I got everything out off the center of the room out of the way. I immediately called the insurance company and said, it's just, there it goes now. I mean, I just started talking to them, and the whole ceiling caved in. And I mean,
all the important paper out of the way. I mean, that's the one room of your house that you don't want to have the ceiling cave in on.
But fortunately, since I, was able to get there and move everything, I only turned in a claim for $50 of lost merchandise. Of course, them knowing what I do, they're like, $50? Now, I thought this was physically impossible because I had a check in my mailbox the next day. Any other insurance claim I've ever had, it takes us a while, then we got to mail it to you, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the next day it was in my mailbox. Like, give him that check now, man. Send it by courier overnight.
He's settling for 50. Get it done.
Yeah.
Because they knew what your policy was.
They're
like, we're lucky. Don't let him find anything else. He settled.
Yeah.
Pops, you know what it's like to have tornadoes going on up there in Michigan. And we know that Doc Blalock, also on the Madness Network, just had his house hit hard with a tornado a couple months back. So they're out there. They're striking all the comics people right now.
We had a few years where we didn't have a lot of tornadoes, but now they're back and making up for lost time.
That's climate something or other, I'm sure.
As long as I've been alive, there's always been tornadoes. And it's kind of funny because the same thing when this one went by here, just the most recent one, I got so sleepy I had to take a nap in the middle of the afternoon. I'm not an afternoon nap, but tornadoes for some reason put me to sleep. I remember my parents were telling me they were coming back from Missouri one time, and a tornado came down the interstate right behind them and started falling down. My dad's going as fast as he can, trying to outrun this thing, nowhere to turn off. And so they were going, how's the kid doing? I was in the backseat falling asleep.
Yeah, it's either the air pressure,
that's probably
or you have a connection to Oz. That
maybe
when tornadoes come, you just and then you're out.
But I've been with so many feet of tornadoes. I mean, I've seen them so many times. I've been fortunate. I've never been actually directly hit by one, but I've been within blocks of them many times.
Well, I've had one go through my town when I was a kid, and I was living in a trailer, so magnet. But it didn't hit. It didn't hit us. It went a couple of blocks away from us, and knocked down a cinder block car wash.
Wow.
in a man's barn. But
my first business location, there's one coming directly at it. I was standing out front watching it. It was in a strip mall, and there's a liquor store in the strip mall. There's some guy from Jersey going, "Tornado? What's a tornado?" Well, the owner of the liquor store, he walks out, so we're explaining to him, okay, now see how on the horizon, see all those little bitty funnel clouds? Those are a whole bunch of little tornadoes. Now see how they're all going together to make one big tornado. Next thing I hear footsteps. They ran and they hid the liquor store. I was like, all that glass, that's the last place in the world I want to be. So I was kind of next to him. I didn't even want to go into my bookstore. I was going to get over between my car and a telephone pole, and it comes straight down at the last minute, veers over until it takes out an elementary school. Now, the elementary school was closed. There was nobody in it, so nobody got hurt. But, so nobody, no physical damage, but a lot of material damage in the neighborhood. But, yeah, just hit a couple blocks away, coming right up a store, curved to the last side.
This brings up an interesting question that we haven't talked about as comics retailers and comic collectors, and that is having the right kind of insurance for the things that we love to keep around us all the time, because it's paper. Fire is not kind to paper. Water is not kind to paper. Wind is not kind to paper.
People are always say, "Oh, you got all this paper inventory. You need to get a sprinkler system in here." I'm like, that's the last thing I want. Is a sprinkler system. Take one false alarm, all my inventory is ruined. But water, that's even more damaging than fire, So
you need an oxygen sucker outer or something.
You want other forms, or just I always had fire extinguishers, but didn't want a sprinkler system. And I've talked to so many customers who had losses where they did well with insurance, and other ones where they did not do well. And that's one conversation you want to have with your insurance company to make sure they know what you've got. And make sure that you're going to be covered. And now nobody's probably ever going to be able to insure their collection for the full value of replacement, because if you got a big collection, it's probably more than a premium you're going to want to pay. So you're going to have to pick a limit that you say, okay, if I had a total loss, I can live with it. Hopefully you'll never have a total loss, so whatever your losses are will be covered. But because you run into some agents like, oh man, you could probably find a box of that somewhere for $50. Yeah, in Fantasyland, I'll buy that box if I can find that.
Oh yeah, and some of the stuff you have might be irreplaceable, or just not purchasable again because no one else is giving them up. They're rare.
And I'm in a unique situation because there's actually been books written about my personal collection. So of course I'm the one who wrote them.
Oh well, I've got some old ones, I guess, but did I show you the oldest one I just bought recently?
I don't think so. No,
because if I did, I wouldn't drag it down. It's right here above me. So I always thought that, like Famous Funnies and Crack Comics and those kind of things, Famous Feature Funnies were first comic books. And Mike Walters would be the man who knows about that kind of thing. Mike is here dropping by to like and share hi. And he has the nightly show called The Mike Stand. And on Friday nights, being tonight, he goes back and he reads the Golden Age comics. He reads them online with guest panelists, and they do the voices. I'm frequently a guest there as well, so it's a fun time just stepping through history and reading the PDFs of these things.
But
I was in an old bookstore in a little town in the country, and that's the dream, right? Because you find an old comic book in an old bookstore, and you're like, yes, this is what I've always wanted. I found this.
Oh, Katzenjammer kids, yeah. Well, those guys, those were scoundrels. They were scamps.
Yes,
always.
This is a one from what I'm reading. Not this issue, but this is the first comic book series, and it was single-sided, multi-page, and this was one of the early issues of the Katzenjammer Kids. This is 1907. So I was like, I saw that, and I'm like, yeah, I must own that.
Yeah, I think you actually go back to 1800s, you'll find like political strip collections. I mean, where do you define the line? Is it original content? Is it the reprints?
Yeah.
You keep pushing it back further and further.
Yeah, and Jason, you're right. That book does look familiar. Jason was with me in that same bookstore when I first saw it, and it's been haunting me ever since. I'm like, do I really want to pay $200 for that comic book? Obviously I did.
Yeah.
Because now I have it. I'm going to it's going to go to Hobby Lobby with me tomorrow, and we're going to find a frame that fits it. to keep it nice and stiff and
When you see something like that, you just he who hesitates is lost, and you always regret it. You don't get second chances.
Yeah. Now, Mike's got a bit of news for us here in the chat too. He said, "Did you hear about the comics museum in Indiana that got robbed of first editions?" Again, this is another insurance thing. So, Mike, if you got a link to that, throw it in the chat here. We'll pull that news story up and take a look at it.
My first year of business, I was burglarized, and so I always had to. And they got me bad because I had some of my best stuff was stolen, and so I always had good systems after that. But you have to stay state of the art because the art is constantly changing. Nowadays, like the last time I think they really got me good. I was still where it was phone lines. You don't want to have your alarm on the phone line anymore. Have it on a cell phone. That way, they cut your power, they cut your phone line. The alarm is still going out. So anybody's out there, if you have an older style alarm system, get it where it's on a cell phone backup. They can't block that or cut it off.
When I talked to an insurance agent last time, a long time ago, I said, "Hey, I've got these comic books here. Are they covered under my policy?" And he said, "No, they are not. They're collectibles. You have to have a separate policy or a separate rider to cover those." So,
insurance companies will rip you off. I mean, I think they get scammed so many times they figure it justifies them scamming people. Like I had after the Katrina hitting New Orleans. Well, then we had bad storms coming up again that way. Well, it didn't hit New Orleans, but they sent all the repair guys down there just in case. Then Little Rock got hit. My Little Rock store was without power for like a week. I had a utilities interruption rider, but they're like, "Oh, you have the wrong one. It has to be to your particular power pole." What? Are you just making this stuff up? I mean, you have the riders, you have the insurance in place. Like, but that's the wrong kind. That's State Farm. I'll never do business with State Farm again.
I used to call them Snake Farm, but
they will.
Yeah, I know what you mean there.
Yeah.
Why can't I copy? I can see Mike's chat here. I just can't treat it like text and copy it from inside StreamYard. So I'm going to do a quick memorization and Google it.
Yeah, because I'm always worried about people trying to burglarize me because there's a rumor going around the area started by I've just got nothing good to say competitor, and that I have an Action Comics #1. I do not have Action Comics #1 in my possession. It's just like making you into a target. And, I never was a superhero guy. My total superhero collection amounts to a total of 0 books. Because what I was interested in, the things I write books about. Burroughs books, Robert E. Howard books, Tarzan, John Carter Marks, the Disney stuff. I love those. No superheroes in my collection. So anybody out there is thinking, he's got Spider-Man #1, he's got Action #1. I guess because I was a retailer for 40 years, they figure I got all the key books. Well, I was a dealer. I was a retailer. I was not a hoarder. I was not a collector. The reason that I was in business for 40 years and I had like 100 competitors come and go because the first thing they do is they go out of business. They got this great personal collection, but they had nothing left to sell because they kept everything to themselves. You can't do that and be a success in business. You got to buy inventory to resell it.
So here's the thing. You know that you want a certain dollar value for this. How do you convince the insurance company of what the value is, especially when you have multiple sources of the truth at one time?
Right. Now, I've had some people ask me to verify in, collections where people, turn stuff, because I'm an Overstreet price guide advisor. So, Overstreet is a good even line because the joke, do you remember when Wizard magazine was around?
I remember buy by Overstreet, sell by Wizard.
Yeah, that was how you spot a crook, right? So Overstreet is accepted, median. It's going to be a little bit out to date on the most recent activities because it's last year's guide. These are last year's prices, not this year's. So we'll be up to date with immediate current trends. But over older books over a longer time period that have a little bit slower change in values, it's going to be a lot more accurate. And so I've seen a lot of people use Overstreet Price Guide to show. Now, one of the things I've always advised people. Get a video camera. Or you use your cell phone. Make a video of your personal collection, and actually, that's a wise thing to do for your whole home because you say a tornado wipes out your house, you won't remember what you had on the wall. You won't remember all of these little details. Or so you make a video, you say, hey, here's my stuff. And then, hey, there's a visual record. They can see that you actually had it. Now, if you got a really big collection, obviously you're not going to go through every one.
I was going to say, it'd be a 7-hour video to, just go over every comic cover.
Right. But you show them like all the boxes and show a few of them in there to, get an idea. And if you got to have a list of, what you had and things like that. I know one guy, he just went through the Overstreet Price Guide and circled everything he had. Well, they paid, and I was not involved on this one. This is just something, between him and his insurance guy. I think he took advantage of the insurance guy, because I know he's buying all those books out of my 50-cent bins, but he circled them in Overstreet with the near mint prices, and he got enough money to open up a restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Comics turned out to be a good investment for him.
For him, it did. Yeah. His kids actually set his shed on fire where his comic collection was, and bam, he cashed out.
Oh, kids are not inheriting the restaurant.
No, well, there is no restaurant because it didn't last very long. So, restaurants are highly volatile. If you want to go into business, restaurants are a high fail business to try to go into.
I put the link out in the chat here for also Jason's coverage on Good Morning Multiverse over there at Sci-Fi for Me TV. So, check that out. Don't watch it right now. Stay here, but do queue it up. And I've got the article here that Mike sent over. Mike Walters. I just need to share it. I would have shared the YouTube video, but then YouTube gets all freaked out. So let's see what happened here. So Hall of Heroes Museum robbed of rare first editions. First of all, that's a cool looking museum. They got that Batman statue out there. I like the Hall of Justice symbol there on top of it. But I think they could do a little bit more to the outside, don't you? It's a little plain.
Little plain.
Yeah. So the Moultrie Observer, and this is from Bleeding Fool. This is our friend Chris Brawley's blog here. The Moultrie Observer reports that a museum dedicated to a superhero comics history was sadly robbed of some valuable old copies. Amid the quietude, this is a reporter who really wants to get fluoride on us here. Amid the quietude of early Sunday morning, police report thieves broke into the world's only museum of comic superheroes, escaping with 50 rare copies of books worth thousands of dollars. Included in the heist were first editions of Captain America, X-Men, Hulk, and Iron Man, said museum director and owner Alan Stewart. Police determined the theft likely involved more than one culprit. We are heartbroken and sick that someone would break into our nonprofit museum and steal this valuable history that we are dedicated to preserve and share, said Stewart. A tourist attraction in the northern Indiana city, the museum features rare copies of Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. There's a hyphen there, folks. You put that in there when you write. Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, better be the real one, and many other iconic comic book figures. That's definitely a terrible thing to happen. And the worst part, Stewart said the museum had hosted its annual convention earlier this month with over 100 vendors attending. He said the irreplaceable comic books were not insured. What have we been talking about here?
Wow. Yeah.
The collection is very, very expensive to insure, he said. We are a small nonprofit and we don't have the funding to insure. They stole history. They didn't just steal stuff. So, yeah,
you hate to hear that.
It doesn't have a list of specific issues, but it just says early issues.
Well, the sad thing is, in every case, he knows who the people are. He doesn't know that he knows them, but it's somebody who's been into his business, the museum. Yeah. So if he ever found out who it was, he'd be shocked because he will end up knowing it. I mean, I'd have people all the time. I could always spot the thieves trying to sell me stolen comics because they were doing, they were like overhyping, talking like they didn't know what they were talking about. And, then they tried to act like I had one guy one time, I bought all these comics from you for $50 a piece when I was a kid. I'm like, those are 50-cent books. They've never been anything but 50-cent books. No, I paid you $50 a piece. I don't want to buy any of them. Sure enough, the next day, a guy comes in, describes his stolen collection. Sure enough, it was his roommate.
Oh, boy.
It's always somebody you know because they've heard you brag, I got this valuable collection. So they think, well, they'll just steal it. They'll cash it out. And but I can always spot them. I never bought a stolen collection, but I can always spot the guys. And, I'll sometimes follow them out in the parking lot. I had one guy went up back out of the parking lot, back down the street so I couldn't get his license plate. But, that was that one guy I described, and it turned out to be the roommate. So I still was able to identify him. So,
if they steal from the store, they generally know exactly. it's not like a liquor store robbery. When it's a comic store robbery, they always seem to know, hit that wall, grab these specific books, and get out quick.
Yeah,
so
they know right where
they're fans.
Yeah, so they've been in the store because they know what to get and where to go. So yeah.
So the writer here, and I don't know who Chris had writing this. Is it him or it's Avi Green, one of their other writers. He says it's surely a vital question. Where could the criminals sell this stuff on the black market? Are there any corrupt millionaires who'd buy them? It's a good question. Now, it's
Probably
terrible that the
dealers,
museum. Yeah, crooked dealers. I'm sure there are plenty of those.
Yes, there are.
So, all right. So they've got a GoFundMe page, and that is right here. I'll copy that and throw that out into the chat for anybody who wants to help. They've got a $60,000 goal, so I'm guessing that's probably the value of the books that were lost.
It can add up pretty fast. Yeah,
it can definitely add up pretty fast.
As I was saying, you get an insurance amount that you can feel you can live with. You don't try to insure everything. You just hope you never have a total loss. I remember one time you remember my JFK store? One of maybe the most premier locations for a comic book store in the country. I mean, as far as visibility, one time I did a lot of advertising on the stations, television stations, and they had this thing. It's called Toonami. It was a block of cartoons on a Saturday, and they had a mobile a trailer of gaming system that was Toonami. All these different gaming machines that you could play, and they would travel around the country. And they set up on my parking lot one time, and they said they had a better turnout than anywhere else in the country because I was so highly visible. They said I even beat Disneyland. They were on the parking lot of Disneyland, and I got more people in than what they did there at Disneyland. So, I mean, it was a great location. Had a kid come in through the roof with an axe. But now here's what I did. Here's a tip that I'll share with everybody. Get lots of alarms. Get so many sirens inside. They're just like, there's been times where alarms got set up by accident. People running out of the building like that because make it bad on them. And, so I had him so discombobulated. He tried to, axe his way out. Well, deadbolt with a thing that he couldn't cut, so he tries to hatch that out. So that won't work. So then he goes and smashes out a window. And it's like, say, here's the square of my building. Well, he's parked right here. He knocks out a window on the corner and then runs the complete wrong way around the building to get to his car. Well, please get to him before he gets off the parking lot. So,
yeah. Well, good. He got caught. And yeah. And that building wasn't a great location. I mean, you had folks, Mike's comic shop in North Little Rock was a renovated McDonald's.
The guy in America
when COVID hit,
into a bookstore.
Yeah. When COVID hit, if Diamond hadn't, shut everybody down, you were the only comic book store I've ever seen with a drive-up window. You could have got that thing opened and working and just use the drive-through window to give comics to people.
Now, I have to admit, I did board that up because that was another entry point. A guy burglarized me one time through. So, well, if we can get hit, I've been hit.
So, I think, is there anything else about insurance questions? I mean, folks, if you got a collection, and you got home insurance, talk to your guy.
Yeah, just the writer.
If you're thinking that if you're thinking you're covered with your flood insurance or your tornado insurance, you're not. You're not. You'll get your couch fixed. You'll get your bed replaced. Your comic collection will be gone if you do not have it insured specifically.
Yeah, you've got to talk to your agent about that because do not assume that you're covered because if you haven't specifically discussed it, I can guarantee you it's not going to be covered. So, it's going to be a very rare instance where, we'll cover your personal collection. They'll cover your jewelry, your watches, personal items like that, but they won't consider comic books a collection like that. That's going to be a whole nother category.
Now, and the thing about that particular writers, you got to update it annually because that's, the price guides come out. And
well, what is you set a dollar amount and then say, okay, that's how much you're going to be covered for. And then, you really, once you do have it set, just kind of maintain a log of what you got. Like I say, take an occasional video from time to time because it's not going to matter what it's worth each year because you're going to have a limit on how much you're covered for. And then when you have a loss, then you want to determine the exact value. So, I wouldn't put time to create my inventory every year. I wouldn't do that. That'd be too much work.
So I just wanted to take a quick check.
I have that. I've got books printed of what I got, so I'm double covered.
Yep, there you go. I just checked out the Kickstarter because we had you on for that a couple of weeks ago. The Skydance of Winter Fire book.
Oh, yeah.
$1,276 raised. Was that goal? Did that make it? Yeah, $600 goal. You did
double the goal. Yeah, but of course, naturally, you would like to put some more zeros behind that. But
always. Well,
one thing that kind of hamstrung us a little bit, we never got the prototypes until right at the very end, so never really had a chance to show them. And I finally did get I've got those where I can show you to you now. This is the magazine version, and there's magazine version, back cover.
That back cover is beautiful.
Oh yeah, you got a word dance in it. You got to have a picture of a girl dancing, but
yeah, you got a lot of illustrations in that too. That's
on the other page. We also did it in a perfect bound square spine. Now it has a different cover. This is the one and only copy of that because there's an image on the inside that we swap out. See if this will flip a little bit better than what the other one did. But yeah, that image right here, that's going to be the cover of the perfect bound format.
Okay.
So so you get story on one side and artwork on the other side, telling you about what's happening in the story there as we progress through the events there.
Oh, I can imagine what you went through on layout on that book just by looking at how you got the white space for the text and the graphics surrounding it.
Yeah, it's technology right now is where things that used to be so labor intensive are actually not that bad nowadays. Using InDesign, Photoshop, all these different processes. You know, it's not the same way as it was back. See if I can find it here for you.
I'm working with some people right now laying out an edition of Grimm's Fairy Tales, and
it's not like way back when I was doing it on a artboard, and that I even used to print it myself. This one right here was printed on that printing press, so I used to do it all. I mean, laid out, hand letter, everything.
You have your own printing press?
Yeah, a Chief 17 in my garage.
Oh,
yeah.
Why are you not in the business of publishing other people's comics?
It's a lot of work. I mean, I'm a journeyman printer, so I've got that background, and there's a certain point where it's just better to have other people do things. You can't do everything yourself. My Wild Stars Volume 2, number 1, the one from 1988. As far as I know, that's the only comic that's ever been created, written, penciled, ink, completely illustrated by one person, and printed by that person. Plus, on top of that, I used printer's techniques to toy with it to make each individual copy a different art print. There's this mountain in the background on this one page, and I faded the mountain out throughout the print run. So if you got that real solid background, that's right towards the start of the print run. If you got a real faded mountain in that background on that page, everything else is fine, but just that mountain, then you're later in the print run. So I made every individual copy unique. Nobody's ever done anything like that. And on top of that, it was also the first comic ever with foil stamping on the cover. It was the first comic ever with die cutting on the front cover, where I cut out a section where you see through the front cover right to the first page. And to my knowledge, it's also the only comic that's ever had die cutting on the back cover. So had a lot of first and still some things that were unique that never been done before or since.
All right. Is that a press that ran on oil-based inks, or was it still tar-based ink?
Just a regular offset printing press. It's just a smaller scale.
All right. Mike is going off to start up his show, so I appreciate you popping in, Mike. Thank you for the story link. We made some good use out of that. File 13 is out in the chat here as well. Good Friday to you too, sir. It is Good Friday. It is Good Friday.
Oh, that's right.
And that makes me think of things in comics that I don't want to think about.
All around the country, rabbits are stealing eggs out of chicken coops and hiding them.
I know, and they use them to mold the chocolate into the right shape.
That's what they are. So,
but it's reminding me of what happened in X-Men a while back, because Krakoa, the
island entity
of Krakoa apparently has a kind of a Lazarus Pit computer, because they're able to resurrect mutants. And they resurrected a mutant from 2,000 years ago whose name was Jesus Christ.
I didn't read that one.
Yes. In the Marvel Universe, in the 616, Jesus Christ is an early mutant.
Okay.
Yeah. And why aren't comics selling, Mike? I don't get it.
You know what that sounds like, though? Have you ever seen the movie The Man from Earth? Not the man who fell to Earth with David Bowie, The Man from Earth.
I love that movie.
That was a great movie.
That's an enthralling movie of people sitting around talking.
Right. It could be a play easily done. It's got like the front porch, the living room, a little shot in the kitchen, maybe one in the bedroom, but that's it. It's all in one place. And it was written, I believe it was by Jerome Bixby, I think was his name.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
He was a very accomplished screenwriter who also wrote a lot of Star Trek episodes. And
he did a sequel to that I've got to look up.
And, remember the one where you had the guy, Flint, the guy who was ageless, and, Spock's like, hey, this is Brahms that we've never been discovered, and this and that. These are paintings. And they realized he was all these great creative people all the years, and he created a robot, but he wanted Kirk to kickstart her emotions. And when Kirk did, she can't decide between the two and melts down. And so they flipped. You remember that one? I think it was, I can't think of the title of it, but that was written by that same guy. And this is almost like a prequel to that. I mean, this could have been part of that Star Trek episode because it could have been like that same guy. And
he just kept on living because he keeps on living into a sequel movie that the guy did. And like I said, I've got to look that up. But yeah, I get where you're going. That guy went. They asked him once they started believing his story, like so where were you, during the crucifixion? And he was like, I was kind of up on this tree with my hands nailed.
Yeah, like, you really want to go there? Yeah,
totally shattered that woman's faith.
Yeah,
Requiem for Methuselah.
It has a great twist in it too. I don't want to say in case anybody watches it, but it's one of these things that just kind of evolves and evolves. And he's like, well, let me ask you a question. What would because everybody's like, man, you've been a great teacher for 20 years, and all of a sudden, the second somebody said, hey, you don't look like you've aged in 20 years, all of a sudden you're leaving in a hurry. What's up with that? And he goes, well, let me ask you a question. What would it be like if a guy didn't age? And then they just evolve from one thing after another. That's a great story.
Jason says the Star Trek episode is Requiem for Methuselah.
That's it, yeah.
And he's curious because I know that Jason is looking at going into print magazine format right now for some stuff. How long it takes to print a 60-page magazine? I don't. Are you like one issue on a printing press, or like?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to print. I mean, you've got letterpress print, which is the way the Gutenberg Bible was printed. And we were using that technology all the way up until almost like the 1960s, and it's still around for things like foil stamping and special features. Then because letterpress was everything was a reverse image. You ran the ink roll over it, then you slapped the ink onto the paper. Bam, you had a printed page. So you had to lay everything out in reverse. Then comes offset printing, which you look at it, you can actually read it. It's like what's going to be on the printed page because then you run the ink over the image, then you offset that ink onto a roller, which then offsets it onto the printed page. That way it goes through a two-stage, and now it's back to the right way. And so that's offset printing. The third way now is a whole new technology. We're on demand, laser printing and digital printing. And so there's a lot of different ways to print. It all depends on how you're going about it.
Yeah, well, I think Jason would like to become a customer possibly of
Now, if he's talking about what I talked about, that took me the better part of the summer because having to print, it was I believe it was 32 pages. So I'm printing 16 sheets, but I got to print each side one at a time. So I've got to make basically I'll pass one side, then you flip it, you print the other side. Now, when you get into big commercial printing, you do a thing what you call, the flip and turn, where you print like half of one page on one side, a whole bunch of pages, and then the flip side of it on the other half. Then when the paper comes out the back, then you just flip the paper over, run it through the press again, and now you printed the opposite sides on the reverse. So that way you don't have to change your place. Yeah, then you cut it, you trim it, you fold it into place, and you got a book, bang. So it depends. If you got a big printing press, you can just do it in one pass.
So I understand. I understand the technology of the printing press itself. I mean, when I was in Sparta, one of the things I had. Okay, so you know how Disney threw away the cells for animations, just put them out on the back porch and let the trash man take them. World Color Press did the same thing with cover plates. So I had one of these bronze colored color plates, a slight curve to it, and it was a reverse image. It was very raised metal. I had a I can't remember.
There
I can't
will be
remember what
four.
it was.
There will be four for every cover, because you've got to have it in the red, the black, the yellow, and the blue.
Well, what I had was, I guess, the black, because it was just the outline of the characters.
Okay.
And it was definitely the line art version of it.
Did you have the lettering?
Yeah. You could tell the title was there and everything, but there was no lettering. There was not a word balloon on it.
Yeah.
It was a Disney one. I remember that. So what I don't know is the process to get from a Bristol board drawing to this metallic raised ledgered
the old process was you had to be a cameraman too. And so that's why they didn't want to work with pencil. Like when I did my Wild Stars portfolio, I wanted to, reproduce some pencils. And the first cameraman, he shot it. He did a bad job. I had to actually go down there, go to the camera room myself and shoot the negatives so I could get the right kind of graininess in there to reproduce pencils, because it could be done. These guys were just so used to solid black or solid white. That's the way they thought. And so what you do is you shoot it on a negative. Then it goes to what you call the stripping department. Now, this is something that the Human Resources Department had to learn how to advertise correctly when they started advertising for strippers, because they had some really hot ladies showing up for a job going, "This is the strangest strip club I ever saw. It looks like a print shop." It is. What it is then you take the negatives and you put them on this big old masking sheet, with all these different lines and borders. That's how you're going to burn the image through the negative onto the plate, and then you put the plate on the press, and then you go through the offset printing. So you take your Bristol board, you camera work it, then you create a negative for it, put it on the strip, and then burn the plate, and then put the plate on the press, and then you go through the offset printing.
So that all that raised layering on the plate is the result of it being behind the negative and something shooting through it and burning the plate.
Right.
Burning away whatever wasn't raised up, I guess.
Right.
So it's a thicker plate, and they burn it until it's thin and flexible. Okay. I understand the process. I have no idea the lasers and death rays it would take to produce that kind of heat and not burn up the negative. But
because right now everything's all the digital printing, this and that. And my Wild Stars graphic novel for the Book of Circles, the very first one, that was actually the first graphic novel Ingram Printing had ever done. And I was going through their lightning source. And so we had to have a conversation, because it was new ground to them. So I have a teleconference with their production staff and the people working the print shop. And of course, I'm talking printing background. And whenever you called heavy ink coverage, you call that heavy blacks. Heavy blue would be heavy blues, this and that. So, this is a black and white comic with a lot of ink coverage in there. The artist that I was using at the time for most of it, Dave Simons, was very good at what you call the artwork about spotting the blacks. And so I asked him, I said, "How are you guys? Do you do well with, heavy blacks? How are you about printing heavy blacks?" And I hear this room just go silent. And then after a while, I hear this one girl goes, "I think he means heavy ink coverage." Oh, ha, ha, like what the hell kind of book do you think I'm printing here?
It's a urban Weight Watchers kind of manual.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, wow, okay. No, it's a comic book, huh?
I'm dealing with Ingram right now. In fact, on the graphic novel end of things,
it's still good.
They continue to reject things because they're like, the cover spine is like, no, the cover spine is fine. It's supposed to look that way. We intended it. Just do it. But
this gets into why I say about how other people handle things. It's nice how Krasova deals with all those problems, and I just concentrate on creating now.
Well, they just recently advertised that they could do the comic book thing in emails to their customers. So I'm like, okay, fine. We sent them, some artwork and a cover, and They can do a minimum of 16 pages, so obviously a 24-page floppy would not be a problem, except for the fact of making it an actual floppy. We asked them, it's like, so we don't see we're submitting it, we're picking the paper, we're picking the color, but we don't see the saddle stitch option. The what?
I know. How do they think we're going to? I guess they're doing perfect bound.
Perfect bound. It's got to be perfect bound. It's like, you can't perfect bound 16 pages.
I know, it's too tiny.
Yeah.
We have a lot of production problems. They're going to find out.
The pages will just fall out.
Yeah.
So
32 pages. I'd say it'd be about the smallest you want to do a perfect bound, kind of like that. This is perfect bound.
There you go. But they did not have a saddle stitch option. I'm like, well, that's, I was going to recommend you to a lot of people who are looking for international distribution printing, but they're doing, 24, 26 page comics, and they're going to want saddle stitch because that's what, comic book collectors like. They like it to be a comic book with staples and everything.
Yeah. Folds open a lot better. Yeah. So, yeah, it's crazy. Speaking of Kursova, another project that he just came out with, again, he has to deal with all the printing problems, and I don't envy on that. My newest Wild Stars just started in their latest issue, the spring issue of Kursova magazine, the Gold Exigency. It's the 7th novel in my Wild Stars. This starts the second half. It's planned to be 12 novels, and this is the beginning of the end. And there's a lot.
You are at halftime. Okay.
Yep, I'm past the halfway mark, and now, I waited until I got to number 6, where I was halfway to say, okay, this is planned for 12, because you don't want to do it when you're 1, 2, 3, or 4. Like, it's just too far off. People can't visualize it. Once I hit the halfway mark, and I already had that novel kind of written way back when I hit that point, it's like, okay, now I can start telling people this was the halfway point. And so now we're on the second half, and now I can see if I can fit everything into these last few books that I've got. I've already got them laid out. I've even got the last chapter written, so nobody has to worry that I'm going to do a George R.R. Martin. Go, well, I don't know what we'll do now. Now I've got it planned, and that's why it gets so complicated and make it so wild to go in so many different directions and still weave it all together. There is a planned finish.
Yep. So obviously that's going to keep you busy for a while, because I was just about to ask you, now that the Lovecraft, the
Robert E.
Howard. Yeah. I knew Howard was in there. It was like Howard Phillips, Howard, Robert E. Howard. Now that that's out of the way, and now that, the Skydance of Winter Fire is completed out, what are you going to do? What's your plans now?
Well, I'm writing other short stories, submitting stuff to different anthologies. You've got one I sent a story off to. I've got another one that, Kursova's doing about the Sons of Hercules. So I've never written a Conan story, so this is kind of the closest thing I can do a Conan, although I can put a little humor into it, where Conan is a little bit more serious subject matter. But this is more like a Saturday matinee type of a story, so I can have fun with that. And then I'm going to try to just go ahead and just keep knocking out my Wild Stars as I have time, and then creating other stuff. I've already got a couple more series of novels that I want to write. So it's never going to be for a lack of having something to do. It's nice to be able to work on other things and also start to dabble with my artwork again too. Yeah, I bet. So you still do the mail order for the comics.
Yeah.
How much time does that take to set aside? I mean, how much business are you still retaining from the old shop?
Amazingly, a lot of it. I have to admit, I've done no advertising, done nothing to try to bring in new customers, because I had so many customers stick with me. It was almost, I know you never want to say that, but it was almost too much. And, I've lost a lot of my smaller customers, and it's almost down to a manageable size now. And, where it's not so time consuming, because right at first it was taking like about half my month. I mean, it's almost like 2 weeks worth of work. And now I'm getting it down to where it's more like about 1 to 1.5 weeks out of the month of work. Of course, then I've got other stuff I do too. I'm on the city council, so that's always got a lot of stuff. If there's a problem in town, I'm going to hear about it. It's up to me to try to figure out how to solve it and fix it. Now that I've had the Robert E. Howard chronology, I can finally leave the house for the first time since I closed my store. Because for 2.5 years, that's all I did, 7 days a week. It was a monster project. If I didn't knuckle down, it was never going to get done. And so I got it done. And so, one of the first trips I took was to the National League of City Conventions in Washington, D.C. And because, when as Mall Mills City Council, part of the Arkansas delegation, got to meet our senators, got to storm the Capitol. Didn't get arrested for it, though. And
really? No insurrections, really? Okay.
No arrest warrants. And discovered Lincoln's secret exit out of the Lincoln room. Not the Lincoln bedroom. That's in the White House. But he actually have a Lincoln room in the Capitol. And he had a secret escape tunnel in there.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's not so much a secret that they keep showing it out to people now, but
yeah, like have you ever you've heard of the rotunda, where have all well, we got to go up on the elevated area above the rotunda, and so so everybody's looking at, hey, who are those people? Like, they probably think we're somebody important, but we're not. So, but it was fun to go through the underground tunnels. Then when you want to go into another part of the building, they actually had to go out one side, walk all the way around, then go in where everybody else came in.
All the secret tunnels. You feel like Nicolas Cage in National Treasure.
Yeah, I was like, how did he not cover this stuff? There were so many things he could have written about, or they could have put in the movies that they obviously didn't know about. Yeah, because we got to go on the tours. The regular people don't get to go on tours, so it was nice.
Very
And then in our free time, of course, we went around to different things like the Washington Monument. The reflecting pool was a big disappointment because it was almost empty. But got to see all the stuff like, wow, the Washington Monument looks so much bigger than the Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, everything looks bigger in the movies, doesn't it? I mean,
yes, it does.
I mean, New York looks a lot more crowded in the movies, and then you see an overhead shot, like just like this group of buildings right here. So Spider-Man's swinging in this big circle all the time.
Yeah, doesn't go that far.
But speaking of comics,
the Washington Tower, it probably look a lot farther down.
If you're up there, probably looks a lot smaller.
Yeah.
But speaking of comics, that is what people come here to find out about from the LCS perspective. So we're at the top of the hour here. It's a good time to ask, what are people asking about? What's coming up that's on your customers' radar?
Well, I've actually had some people add to the new Shazam, to the new Titans. DC, though, it's like the weak sister in the comic industry. Marvel's really just chugging along because they've got their main titles that they keep going, even though they restarted from time to time. They've kept the main characters and masthead titles, going, and kept the readers. They didn't stop, go away for a long time. DC just lets things go on hiatus, and that's why Flash almost sells as well as Batman, because he hasn't gone on a long hiatus. And so Wonder Woman, she's still going. So Green Lantern, they need to bring him back while he's still got some readers. They keep him gone for too long. I hate to think how bad it's going to be when they finally do bring him back. You just don't stop a series that should be being published on a monthly basis and put them on hiatus. I mean, they don't have that many monthly books coming out. You're just like, what is going on? How bad is the leadership? I mean, you keep waiting for the change to take effect and start seeing something kick into gear, and it just hasn't happened with DC.
I mean, they're trying to do this slow restart of things.
This is on slow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. It's slow.
I mean,
Hojo out in the chat popping in to check us out here as we're wrapping things up. Also, Keely Chow, we are talking about we're at the point where we're talking about what people are buying in comics and what they're looking forward to. So, if you want to drop your wants in the chat, give us some market temperature from where you guys are at. What books are you looking for to come out real soon? And what books have you dropped? Let us know. That's what we talk about here.
Yeah.
So I did pick up their Superman #1, and I could tell right away reading it. It's like, okay, things are different. The barometer is a little bit changed here. Perry White has apparently retired, and the new editor-in-chief is Lois Lane. And she's still married to Clark, so there's that part hadn't changed. But you get into this whole thing where Clark's wearing headphones all the time, and just listening to music while he's working. And apparently, it's something that he's always done since he was a kid to temper the super hearing. And she's like, "Does it help?" He's like, "Oh no, I still hear everything. I just get to hear the music too, and I can focus on that." So it's a little, it's different. I liked it. I liked what it was doing. Interesting plot. Lex Luthor's in jail, and Lex Luthor's just muttering all the time because he knows Superman can hear him. so you see Superman fighting these people all the time, and it's on TV, and you hear this like, you need to take him out hard. You need to hit him right there. Don't let him get back up. Do not jail this guy. No, you really. This is one of the guys you need to kill. You really okay? Don't listen to me. Fine. It's kind of funny doing that.
Yeah,
but
that's good.
Apparently, with him in jail, he's telling Superman, he's like, you don't understand. I'm out of your way. You're not fighting your enemies anymore. You're fighting mine. And apparently they're really ruthless characters that Luthor was always taking on. Superman was sort of a side job for him. So it's a whole new ball game, and it's kind of, I'm intrigued enough to try the second issue. I'll put it like that.
Well, good.
Detective Comics. I read this. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm totally lost. Apparently Jim Gordon knows that Barbara Gordon is Oracle, or was Oracle, or still is Oracle. Harvey Dent's found out who Batman is. But Batman's been hurt so badly because this new person in town who nobody knows who they are, new villain, like, okay. I don't like not knowing. I miss the days when you pick up the book and first page, crime happening. Turn the page, hero finds out. 20 pages of finding clues and solving mystery, and then 2 pages of catching burglar and putting him in jail. Come back next month for another one of the same.
You got a whole story at each issue.
Yes.
Now you're getting snapshots. You're getting scenes.
Yeah, I mean, even Marvel back in the day, it was a soap opera. There were these long running tales, but they were under it all. Yeah, that's it's. I'm fighting the Scorpion right now, and and I caught him. Throughout all of that, I'm worried about Aunt May being sick, and is Mary Jane gonna get the job? And that would carry through, next month when you fight Electro, you have a different overarching story that's one and done.
Jim Shooter, when he was editor-in-chief, a lot of people hated him. He was like Mussolini. He made the trains run on time, and the comics always came out on time. That's what I loved about it as a retailer. But he had this rule that treat every comic as if it's somebody's first comic, which was a great rule. Now, once he was gone and some of the other editors came in to replace him, they didn't do so good with that rule. I remember Jim Owsley writing, I forget, it was Fantastic Force or something like that. And you got a character going, and she's holding up a shaft. Says, now strikes Huntaris. And then she gives her whole history. And she's about to strike a blow. Like, oh, all right, that's just screech, stop, put your arm up like it's the Spirit movie. And okay, now I'm going to give you the background story on who this character is,
Yeah. And then they got the whole not Napoleon Dynamite, but Todd. I can't remember. I didn't read the comic. I know that they made a movie about him, about his comic book, and it caught a lot of people on. Girlfriend had blue hair and everything, but it was like there was this format that they used where they would introduce the characters in a text box, and it'd be like, if it were X-Men, Wolverine would be like, I got this, and you'd have this box underneath, Wolverine, adamantium claws, healing factor, berserker. And it's just like, that's how everybody got introduced, was with these subtitles of their characteristics. And that started to feel like a cheat of some kind.
Yeah.
I just carry a sign around with me.
It's creative. It's artistic. There's ways to do it that aren't cumbersome, but it takes a little effort. And a lot of times, some of us older readers, we just don't see the effort being shown as far as the technique of the storytelling. The art is the best it's ever been. I mean, the art of the comics nowadays is fantastic. It's just the delivery of the story it's lacking. I mean,
a lot of the art is good.
Yeah. But all the writing's bad, because it's not. There's a lot of good writing out there, like what you just described on Superman. Sounds like a fun take on Superman. It can be done. There's some good writing out there, but there's a lot of junk.
Really, really good art as well. Captain Infinity, thank you for popping in, man. Appreciate it. The art in the Batman book was really good. It was, dark and gritty, and it's Batman kind of current Batman kind of art. Sue me, I still miss, the blue cape and and that kind of a lighting to the story. But yeah, now Robin, that's being canceled with issue number 7. That's that story. All the stories were Robin on a date, basically. With Bernard, and they finally replaced the artist, but not in time to save it from cancellation. The artist was just drawing these gangly necked, boneless kind of characters. They looked so cartoonish that it was not a superhero tone for the book. And,
like Plastic Man.
Yeah, kind of like Plastic Man, a YA Plastic Man kind of mix. It was not Robin. and the new Robin came out, and it was artistically very well drawn. Story-wise, it's still another date with Bernard, and fire breaks out and Phobia's there, and you get to find out all of Bernard's deep, dark secrets about how his parents have always hated him for being, gay, and how much he really loves Tim. And I know that Tim always seems to disappear when Robin shows up. I'm not stupid. So ends the book with the whole, until he tells me his secret, I'll keep my mouth shut. So he's Tim's Pete Ross now. Remember Pete Ross from Superboy?
Yeah.
That was, again, a great story element. Like Superboy, all his life, somebody knew his secret and he didn't know it, and they were always helping him out. It's like, oh gosh, that meteor's going to hit us, and everybody's looking at Clark. He can't change the Superboy. Oh, help, I knocked the lantern over.
Yeah.
and Superboy was like, boy, it sure is lucky for me that Pete knocked that lantern over.
Oh, boy, I'm glad he's clumsy like he is. Yeah. Yeah. And that's good storytelling. That's one of the things that have been lost in comics, is that you have an extraordinary person in an ordinary situation, or an ordinary person in an extraordinary situation. Instead, now it's extraordinary people in extraordinary situations. Like, oh, I'm going to need to move the planet before the other planet comes to collide. Like, oh yeah, we can't relate to that. But oh, hey, you're a regular person trying to deal with a superhero. Okay, well, you can relate with being the regular person. Or Clark Kent. Oh, hey, I'm in the bank. There's a robbery going. How am I going to solve this without revealing who I am? Oh, lucky Pete Ross did something stupid,
Yes.
So.
I remember an article. Oh God, I was a kid, and this was some magazine article, and I remember my mom saying, well, somebody's got too much time on their hands. But they did this analysis that said Superman's not real, to which I said, duh. But they said it was basically a schizophrenic reaction of Clark Kent's mind to being to feeling ineffective in his normal everyday life. So he's created this alter ego of Superman to psychically deal. Yeah, Walter Mitty'd him.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think so.
There's certain tropes though in comics that are true. It's like the Hulk, or no matter how powerful you are, you always have just barely enough strength. Oh, you got to move a mountain. Oh, I can just barely move it. Oh, I got to lift the pencil. Oh, I can just barely lift it. Just barely.
The Invisible Girl.
Speed.
The Invisible Girl is like, I'm levitating the bottle cap. I don't know how long I can hold this, Reed. Might be 12 years, might be 5 seconds. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just so heavy. Yeah.
I'll keep this force field up as long as I can, but you better do something.
Yeah.
He's the most powerful member of the team, always has been. John Byrne got cold-blooded when he talked about her. He's like, you realize a little force field about this size and length is nothing for her to concentrate on and make. And all she's got to do is just put one over the trachea of the enemy, and they stop breathing. They just fall over.
Yeah.
So,
she could be deadly.
Yeah, she could be. It's invisible. You see.
She could make force field bullets. I mean, just anything she wanted.
And I think she did at one point. I don't know how fast she could make them go, but force field. Heck, a force field bubble in your belly. It's like, I need to make it a little bigger. Yeah. You feeling it? Yeah. You want to quit? I'll make it a little bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. It was this guy like, Wolverine fighting Magneto. He's got all the adamantium in it, like that's going to be a pretty sure fight. Yeah.
Well, what that tells us is that, adamantium is one of the ferrous metals. It's magnetic. Not every metal is, it's like, Wolverine and another guy with claws could have attacked Magneto, and Wolverine gets this way and Magneto goes, whoop, and the guy keeps coming. He's like, yeah, what are you going to do with nickel, buddy? Just going to slice him up with, blades of nickel.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't always put a whole lot of thought into it. They're not always consistent, are they?
No, they weren't, but it was consistent enough. It was entertaining enough.
Remember how schizophrenic Kazar used to be? 1 minute
I never really read Kazar.
He was one minute he was very intelligent, articulate. Next thing you know, mightier than Mastodon. You're like talking like the Hulk. Yeah, he just it was like he was multiple characters.
Well, I guess it depended on whether or not the next writer read the previous stories or just said, "Oh yeah, okay, he's a Tarzan. I know Tarzan. Tarzan's Johnny Weissmuller. Boy, go village."
Yeah, exactly. Which in the books he didn't talk like that. He's very articulate, knew multiple languages, and so the people who read the books just hated the movies. Just like, oh, that's not Tarzan, not even close. So yeah, it all depends on how much research the writers do. And like you said, we go from one writer to the next. All of a sudden, you got a different character.
Now, the last Tarzan movie they did, I really liked that one because I thought that they tried to stay with the Tarzan of the books because he was articulate. But
yeah, they tried to put him into history. But the thing, when I was talking to the president of Earls Burroughs, when I was kind of pitching my own idea that they could make a movie out of, I was like, the problem is when Tarzan came out, he was a contemporary. He was a man of the times. Now they're sticking him back into history, making him a retro type of thing. And, my pitch was like, bring him back, reinvent him for the current age. Now, whenever they try to do that, they always seem to mess it up. He knows monkey foo and things like that. So it's one of those things you got to get it right. And so I pitched him my idea because we're writing up a synopsis. We might want to have you do a screenplay. So I wrote it up because, we like this so much. We want you to write it up as a novel. So I wrote it up, but then I didn't get it to him fast enough. By the time I turned the novel in, they had started doing all the reissues of all their Tarzan novels. So they're going through releasing all these books. And so they've had my manuscript sit there for getting close to 3 years now waiting to be read. Hey, I'm like, I wonder what I did with that thing. I wrote that a long time ago now.
3 years is a blip in publishing time, though. I mean, they might still be wanting to do something with that. So,
they haven't even read it yet. So we don't know what's going to happen with that.
Well, now that you got the Robert E. Howard thing out of the way, tap him on the shoulder and say, "Hey, you still thinking about that?"
I'm busy with projects, and it was originally kind of envisioned as possibly the first of a trilogy, and now I'm like, what was I going to do on those other two? Because it's been so long. I'm sure it'll come back to me. But,
making an ongoing series, those ongoing series. What is it? A septology where it's 7 books. Because that seemed to be a thing for a while. You had to have 7 books in a series.
Wow. Well, I wrote it kind of like I did with my Wall Stars. In my Wall Stars, I had it all planned, had it mapped out, knew where it was going to end. And that's why it was such a big, complicated story. And I'm still getting to things that I was teasing in my first comics way back in the 80s. And I'm still finally letting the other shoe drop on stuff because all these things were laid out so far in advance. And like, wow, you really had that plan that far in advance? I did. And so when I approached the Tarzan book, I approached it from what if Earls Burroughs knew all the other books he was going to write, all the other characters. And so I had cameos in there from John Carter, from Carson, from Venus, and all the. And I've got Pellucidar in there. I mixed it all in. I got it all there.
Okay, I'll read that. I'd love to see a Burroughs verse. In modern time.
I got this one scene. I wish I could describe it to you. I don't want to give it away because it's a key scene. Like that's going to be the cover scene. It's like the wildest thing you ever saw.
Well, I said the 7-book series thing is a real moneymaker because Harry Potter, 7 books, and all 7 of them became movies, which made her, she's the richest woman on the planet, I think.
She did well.
And I just read
been rejected by every publisher.
Yeah. And I just read that they're not gonna do the movies again, but they're going to take each book and do a series. So because streaming is a thing now that wasn't when the Harry Potter movies came out. So they're going to take book 1 and make that season 1 on I want to say HBO Max because it's a Warner Brothers project, but it might go somewhere else. So there's 7 years of weekly episodic drama that she's going to make just more cash.
Then I need to get her agent working for me. get him on my Wall Stars.
Well, and I know a guy who worked at one of the filming places way back when she was shopping it around the first time, and they turned her down, and it went to Warner Brothers, and that movie went off, and they're like. He said they were just kicking themselves. So she was in our office. She was pitching this thing to us. And we said no.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things I've noticed because the same thing that happened to her, what's happened with me is, they always say, show us something new, show us something different. what they really mean is show us something that's familiar with a little bit of a twist. Because when you show them something new, something different, like, well, I don't know what that is, and so they want familiar, but they want to act like it's That's why you see all these Harry Potter imitators, because the people, oh well, what that person did, I'm going to do it with this twist, and then they buy it up. So they don't really want something new. They don't want really something different. So when you've got a unique idea, a unique concept, they don't know what to do with it. They can't visualize it.
Well, folks, we are past the top of the hour. Got off on some tangents here, but that's okay. It's kind of what we do.
Tornadoes and insurance coverage.
Tornadoes and insurance coverage. Roll back to the beginning of the show, folks, when you're done here, because that was the important stuff. You're a comic book collector. Consider your insurance coverage. But if you want something familiar with a twist, come back in 2 weeks when we do the LCS Guys show all over again. It'll be just like this, but with different topics and possibly some different guests. We're talking with people and might shake the lineup up a little bit here. Familiar with a twist. We just like a James Bond martini,
shaken but not stirred.
Exactly. And that's a Vesper, isn't it? The name of the drink.
I'm not familiar with drinks. I don't drink a lot, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, I mean, in the James Bond universe, it's a Vesper because he like invented the drink to a bartender and named it after his girlfriend, his dead girlfriend.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, his girlfriend's name was Vesper because it's a Bond girl. They all have these poetic kind of names or dirty names.
Yeah, some names we probably shouldn't say because we were like, did you hear what they said on that show? Like, it was a Bond character. Yeah, but you can't say that.
Yeah, so many things.
Old figure.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, we're not going to say her name.
Yeah, Octo, and that one. Yeah,
there's another one. Yeah, there's some names just not appropriate for prime time. and yet, he got away with it.
That was something that Ian Fleming just liked to do, was name the Bond girls these double entendre things. And he didn't just stop there. I mean, when he did Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, yes, folks, the guy who wrote James Bond wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
That,
the girlfriend of Dr. Cracticus Potts was named Truly Scrumptious. It's like, okay, go Ian.
Anyway, that was a James Bond crossover we never saw.
Oh, well, I mean, again, car with a lot of gadgets in it that could do crazy things, just like that Aston Martin. He had the tropes that he knew worked well for his stories.
Yeah,
Michael,
that's the key.
Yeah, thanks for coming out once again and sharing some time with us here. Do appreciate it. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Everybody in the chat, same to you. Glad you're here. Always appreciate you being here. We don't have a show without you, so we're glad you're here. And of course, while you were here, well, we just hope you had a blast. Good night.